Hi folks, welcome back to another episode of Talking Conservation. If you've spent any time listening to this series, you'll know that certain names come up time and again. And one that keeps cropping up in our conversations with the conservation professionals that we speak to is Ronald Brunskill. Now, I'll admit, I haven't personally read all of his books from cover to cover, but when someone's work is cited this often by people at the sharp end of historic building conservation, it's worth paying attention. In this episode, we're doing something a little different. Stephen's taking the reins solo, and he's going to walk us through 4 key books by Brunskill that he's found invaluable throughout his career as a building surveyor. These are the kind of resources that have stood the test of time and have helped shape the understanding of vernacular buildings across the UK. So whether you're a homeowner, a student of conservation, or just someone fascinated by how our historic buildings were put together, this is a chance to hear about the titles that are worth seeking out. It's not just a dry book review, this is a quick guide to some of the most useful texts you probably haven't read, but you really should.
Hello. Ronald Brunskill was born in 1929 and died in 2015. He was an academic who had studied architecture and indeed began a career in architecture, but soon found his niche in teaching. He was an authority on the history of architecture and in particular British vernacular architecture. Brunskill was passionate specifically about the conservation of vernacular architecture and in 1990 was awarded an OBE for his services to conservation. He had a number of published works, all of which provide valuable reading material. It is my view that his books are essential to any study of historic buildings in Britain. In this video, I will talk about 4 of those books that I have found particularly useful and to which I refer to regularly. The first of these is in fact not only the first book he had published, but also the first of his that I purchased. It is the Illustrated Handbook of Vernacular Architecture, first published in 1971. This book provides help to those who have little or no previous knowledge of the subject, as it leads to an understanding and appreciation of the wealth of vernacular architecture in this country. The book starts by looking at construction materials for walling and roofing. Here we see an example page from a section on roofing, and the layout is typically with text and an image to the left and sketches and annotation to the right-hand side. Incidentally, Brunskill provided most illustrations to his books. Later sections of the book look at plans and sections of buildings as well as architectural details, before then looking at specific types of buildings. Here we see an example from the section on farm buildings. At the back of the book there are a series of maps showing distribution of materials. Here we see those relating to timber walling. There are also sections on recording buildings found towards the end of the book. In my view, this book is an essential start for any student of conservation in Britain, and of course any homeowner interested in finding out more about their building. The next book I want to mention is Traditional Buildings of Britain, first published in 1981. In the introduction, Brunskill says, "It is not about the great and imposing buildings which we usually call works of architecture, but about the smaller and less pretentious buildings which are far more numerous and which provide an essential background for the great architectural works." He develops these themes in the book by looking at the various forms of vernacular buildings that are likely to be found and provides typical examples in plans and sections. In addition, he looks at common walling and roofing materials. A section of the book provides an overview of the various regional variations. In this image, we see a Wealden house from Kent with some sketches and layout plans for the building. Later in the book, there is an exploration of architectural decoration, and, as with all of these books, it is well illustrated with many examples provided. The last section of the book looks at regional variations, and here we see examples from the North and East Wales. As with all of his books, there are bibliographies and references, providing useful pointers to further research and reading. This book and the illustrated handbook already discussed provide an excellent start for anyone wanting to learn about vernacular architectural history. The next book I want to look at is Timber Building in Britain, first published in 1985. This is probably the book I refer to most frequently as part of my day-to-day work, which is unsurprising as I am based in the eastern part of the country where timber framing is prevalent. However, it is relevant to any building with timber elements within it. The book itself is divided into 4 sections: construction, an illustrated glossary of terms, the chronology of timber building, and regional variations. The section relating to construction considers the conversion of timber and the methods of construction. However, in this image we see some buildings that are partly stripped and in a semi-derelict condition. With many timber frames, it is only as they are exposed that we gain a better understanding of the construction. Nonetheless, it is sad to see buildings in this condition. Moving to the glossary section, this is well illustrated, and in fact many of the illustrations in this book are from farm buildings, particularly barns. This image reminds us that barns can be rather cathedral-like in their nature. Here are further extracts from the glossary section, and in this instance we see examples of carpenter's marks and chamfer stops. As you may anticipate, there are a number of illustrations of joints and also some repair methods. The section on the chronological survey of timber buildings is primarily by way of illustration. Here you can see me flicking through the various pages. The very first image is of the Church of St Andrew at Grinstead in Essex, said to be the oldest timber frame structure dating from the Saxon period. But as you can see, the illustrations cover a wide range, including examples from the 18th and 19th centuries. Towards the end of the book, there are a series of maps showing distribution of materials, and in this example you will see close studding and square panels. As a point of interest, the dust cover on my copy is an old image of Little Hall at Lavenham, which happens to be a building that I have inspected and have had involvement with over a number of years. The last of the 4 books is Brick Building in Britain. This was first published in 1990 as a successor to English Brickwork that had been published in 1977. Since 1990, a further edition called Brick and Clay Building in Britain was published in 2009. Each edition provides additional information, although in each there are some sections and photographs that are the same. This book is divided into 3 main parts, the first of which looks at brick making and the use of bricks. The second section is a glossary, and the final part of the book is a chronological survey. It is therefore set out in a similar manner to the Timber Building in Britain book. This is the only Brunskill book in my collection that has colour plates within it, and here we see one where the use of bricks is considered and illustrated with 4 colour photographs. In this next image there are further colour photographs illustrating the variety of ways in which brick is used. Next we move on to the glossary, and here I show a page where brick bonding is illustrated in photographs and line drawings. In fact, the glossary is full of a combination of photos and line drawings that more than adequately illustrate the terms used. Towards the back of the book is the chronological use of brick in buildings. Here, as with the Timber Building in Britain book, the chronology is primarily by way of photographs. As I flick through the pages, you can see that it includes use of brickwork in the 20th century. However, it of course takes us back through the Georgian period, as well as looking at the Jacobean, Stuart and Queen Anne eras. There are a number of illustrations of medieval brickwork as well. As you can see, it is well illustrated. This provides a useful resource that can help in dating buildings. In the appendices of the book, there are sections looking at the brick taxes of the 18th and 19th centuries, as this gives some historical context to the development of brick. This book is yet another essential read for anyone interested in the history and development of brickwork. It is useful to the student of conservation, but also to anyone interested in understanding the history of buildings.
So that's it for this bonus episode, and as you've probably gathered, Stephen's a big fan of the Brunskill books. They're sadly no longer in print, but you can often find them secondhand online or in bookshops or even tucked away in the occasional charity shop. If you come across one, they're absolutely worth snapping up. They're a brilliant resource if you're working with, living in, or just fascinated by traditional buildings. If you found this guide useful, do give the video a thumbs up. It really helps with others finding the channel. Make sure you've subscribed and hit the little notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos. We've got some really interesting topics on the way, including more expert interviews and some practical advice on working with traditional materials. And if you've got any questions or thoughts on any of the books that Stephen's mentioned, or your own favourite resources, drop them in the comments below. We always enjoy hearing what's been helpful to you. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
You've been listening to Talking Conservation,
The podcast all about conservation of old, traditional and historic buildings and sites.
with me, Stephen Boniface.
And me, Rich Aylesbury.